Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am not Sam Centeos, in case you're confused. Sam could not join us for this evening, so I will pinch hit and apologize in advance for anything I screw up this evening. But I would like to call to order 6:08 February board meeting of the South Bend Empowerment Zone. First, like to take roll. Ms. Watkins.
Here.
Ms. Northern.
Here.
Ms. Ray. Here. Ms. Easton.
Here.
Ms. Wall.
Present.
Mr. Wilson. Here. Thank you. First thing we will open up with is public comment. If we have anybody that would like to speak, again, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes regarding anything you'd like to speak on. You may speak once during the section. Identify yourself, please, name and address, and stay away from any personnel related matters. Do we have anybody? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to, you all have our agenda in front of you. Okay, sorry.
Good evening.
Good
evening.
My name is Kina Jirogi, stating that for the record. I'm not sure who exactly I need to talk to, but this is in regards to my daughter's transportation to and from Navarre Middle School. And the problem is that when I call to talk to, I'm guessing the bus company that was hired or contracted through Empowerment Zone, I'm getting nowhere. Where I'm being told that she can walk 14 blocks to school, or she can walk 5 blocks in the opposite direction to catch the bus. And in the neighborhood that we live in, I stay on Kentucky Street. Kentucky Street is the cutoff that they said for the buses to pick up. And I see the bus go past that stop of the corner of Kentucky and Ford, and I'm like, why can't you pick her up at this corner instead of putting her safety in jeopardy and walking all the way 5 blocks to Cayley or 14 blocks all the way to Navarre? I've had a daughter already go to Navarre. At the time, I was fortunate enough to take her back and forth to school, but I work another job where it doesn't allow for that. And actually, I got called into the office because I kept trying to run back and forth to take her to school and also to pick her up. And I'm just trying to see who do I need to get in contact with in order to try to get the bus to stop at the cutoff to pick her up. I just don't know what else to ask for. It's like her safety's at jeopardy. I don't know what else to do. These days have changed. From the time when my older daughter was in school, they have sex, trades, trafficking, and I don't want her to be a statistic just because I didn't say something or do something. I'm coming and I'm asking, what can I do? That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate your feedback and concern, and our leadership team, administrative team has gotten the feedback, and we'll address that.
And do you need a way to contact me or reach me to let me know?
We have it.
Okay.
We have it.
What's your name?
My name is Rhonda, and this is Julia. You guys contact.
Right, I've been in contact with you.
Okay. Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe we have anyone else. Allow for another minute here. Okay, thank you again. We'll move ahead. Board members, you have your agenda that we recommend we adopt for this meeting. The next step is we have approval of minutes from the last two board meetings. You may recall from our last meeting, we tabled approval of the December minutes. So I'll in a minute here ask for a motion, but I do want to note that as was said by Dr. Lewis, our meeting last month was very engaging, a lot of really robust, good discussion. I think all of us as board members enjoyed the opportunity to listen to some very good discussions that provided some very good evidence that we're making progress in terms of academic achievement and certainly other things we're doing within the zone. So I think I'll say on behalf of all of us, I thought we all enjoyed the opportunity last month to have dialogue and meet. That being said, does anybody have questions on any of the minutes as presented or a motion to approve? You do that. Okay, let me back up a minute. Yeah, we will first have a motion. Sorry about that. We'll first have a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting before we go to the minutes.
So.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now, on to the minutes. Any questions, discussion, changes, concerns? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve minutes for, we'll do them separately. First for the December 13, 2022 minutes.
So moved.
Second, Ball.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Next, we'll move to January 18, 2023 board meeting minutes. Any discussion or motion to approve?
I move we approve the February meeting minutes. Ball. I'm sorry, January. Ball.
A second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll move next to board president report, which I will provide some commentary from Sam, and also as well as my own observations, and any other members are welcome to chime in. But a lot of really positive new programming that we've seen in the last few months, recent time here within the zone, through not only collaboration with outside agencies and organizations such as Reigns of Life, but and then also opportunity for our students to experience tap dance, and then upcoming a great event downtown at the Morris Performing Arts Center in connection with Black History Month. We've got a showcase that's coming up, which was talked about at our last meeting, and again gives us a good reminder. Hopefully we get a lot of attendance and support for that event. I know that should be a great experience for the kids in the community to utilize that venue, so it's great to see. The other commentary, and we may hear about it a little bit as well, Dr. Lewis, is with the reset, some significant changes, certainly with uniforms and the adoption of that, along with clear backpacks. But speaking for Sam, felt that is going to provide fantastic outcomes. We've seen, as again we'll hear, very, very good response from our families, and we know and acknowledge it was not easy to adopt that, but a lot of progress. We were about at the finish line there and seeing some good results of and benefits from that. So again, some really good things going on that I think we can all start to see some progress and be excited about. That's all I had from that report, so I will move to Dr. Lewis.
So we're going to move to first focus report, quick update on the Black History Month showcase. And we have Ms. Amber Davidson, our amazing director of student experience, to provide some comments.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As Dr. Lewis just said, I am Amber Davidson, Director of Student Experience. It is a pleasure to be before you, board, our chief, and guests. So I am here before you In honor of Black History Month, for the first time ever, we will be having a live Black History Month showcase at the Morris Performing Arts Center. In the past, this showcase has been virtual, so you can watch it on YouTube if you would like to go back to previous years. But this year, our team, when we all joined, and at the beginning of October, we said we wanted to do something big for our students to change the narrative, and this is one of our first events. So just a little bit about the showcase. The showcase will showcase all of our students from the zone. We'll have all the students bused as a field trip to the zone at the Morris. Our students at each school will be participating, going through musical acts that represent Black culture and Black music. We will start with sacred music, blues, jazz, R&B, and ending with hip hop. So each of our schools will have at least one act for those genres. And also, something else we want to do, we want to continue our partnership with our community partners. So each of our schools, we have singers from the community, musicians from the community, and dancers from the community helping with these acts as well. And also, for the first time ever, we have a SBEZ Black History Month choir. We sent an email out to our staff, the whole zone staff, asking who would want to volunteer to be a part of our choir. And we got a great response, so we will also have a choir at the day of this performance, giving us some songs to make us feel joyful. Another one of our fun facts that we're gonna have Mr. John Paul from WSBT as our host. He will be also bringing in the news station as well with him to capture this great event for our students. And one of our big surprises, our Director of Community Partnerships, Ryan Gazel, he has helped us secure over $8,500 in sponsorships for this event. He is not here this evening, but I would like to thank our event sponsors. We have Ivy Tech, South Bend Alumni Association, Notre Dame Federal Credit Union, South Bend Education Foundation, the South Bend Office of Community Initiatives, the University of Notre Dame, First Source Bank, Alpha Dog Agency, Barnes and Thornburg, Bethel University, and EventSeeds. So we have all these great sponsors that believe in this project as well, and they are helping make sure this project goes without effort. So also, in partnership with our colleges, we will have a College Fest to start off our show. So as you heard me mention, we have Notre Dame, Bethel University, all our local universities coming. They will actually have tables set up in the forum of the Morris, and they will greet our students as they come in. As we know, it is never too early to start our elementary students with career and college readiness. So during our pre-show, we'll have a DJ, and each representative from each college will give a little inspiration to our students before the show starts. There's also word that the mascots might be coming, and we might have a dance-off, so we think that would be fun for our students as well. This is also in partner with 21st Century. As you all know, 21st Century gives free college tuition to students that attend Indiana universities. To conclude our show, we'll have Excellence and Service Awards. This award is given to one male and one female native from South Bend that has directly impacted our schools and our community. And just to end what I have to say today, we are really excited about the Black History Month Showcase, and of course we invite you all to come at the Morris Performing Arts Center. Of course, this is the first time, and we hope it is not the last time for our students. The goal for this show is not just to have our kids there, but to give them a new experience, to give them an experience that they've never had before, to promote engagement, to promote excellence in all of our schools, and for them to continue to strive for excellence. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for that. Especially pleased to see the community partnerships, a nice list of companies, organizations, universities stepping up to sponsor that. So that great to see the community collaboration. Thank you.
Again, Ms. Ball?
Just a question, will it be, will folks be able to view this remotely, because it is at 11:30 and there may be people who want to stop by but can't? Will we be able to see it virtually?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, and so just another sponsorship that's not actually mentioned, Apple Dog has actually volunteered to video the entire performance for free for us. And they will also have their photographer, along with our photographer, Miss Jackie Miller, there as well. But yes, it will be recorded live. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Thank you, Ms. Davidson, to you and your team for putting this together. It was a big undertaking, we're basically putting this on without any cost to the zone. The Mars also provided the facility essentially in kind. I'm new to South Bend, but in the short time I've been here, being on the west side and talking to our families and our students, many of them have lived in the city their entire life and have never been to the Morris. So, for students living on that side of town, having the opportunity not just to be there, but to also be on stage, think about what that does for our students. So to Ms. Davidson, the entire student services team, all of our school leaders and staff who are working to put this event together, all the parents who are making sure that their kiddos are getting to rehearsals and that they'll be there. Just well done to everyone, and I'm looking forward to this event. Thank you. So next we will go into our focus reports. We'll start with the Q2 survey with Ms. Roxana Zapata and Dr. Erin Lemro, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning and our Director of Data and Accountability.
Hello, good evening. Okay, so moving on to some of our survey data. Thank you. So quarter two survey responses, as you know, we've got a quarterly survey. We have some trends here in terms of response rates. Students on the far left, staff in the middle, and family. I think we've got some schools that are holding really strong in terms of student response rate. In particular, Harrison and Wilson stand out as far as getting those kiddos to reply and engage in our survey. Staff response rate is holding pretty solid as well across schools. And then excitingly, our family response rate holds steady for all schools and increases for all schools from Q1 to Q2. So we're excited to see family response rates increase for Q2. All right, so some high-level takeaways as we look through. Essentially, we have a data and accountability team that sifts through all of our responses, not just statistically, but looking at open comments and teasing out words and phrases that kind of give us an idea about these trends and takeaways. So essentially, what we've come up with here from the student survey, at our elementary schools, students generally trust adults to help them succeed in school, yet they do not enjoy or feel safe with their classmates. In middle school, students continue to feel unsafe from bullying, with trust in adults continuing to decrease. And overall, elementary students indicate they are not receiving enough academic challenge or stimulation through their homework and assignments. And we'll get to this last bullet point and some of the breakout data so you can see what exactly that looks like. In terms of family responses, we have parents want more communication related to student performance in the classroom. Again, on another slide, we'll see exactly what parents are asking for and what that looks like. Across all elementary schools, families' perceptions of communication continue to score pretty low, and we saw a decrease from Q1 to Q2, both for communication about school events and teacher-level communication about student performance. In terms of staff, overall staff support the Empowerment Zone's mission and enjoy and feel competent in their work. However, cultural and interpersonal aspects within work teams still need some addressing. And so here we've got some breakout of exactly what this data looks like from the high-level takeaways. So essentially how to kind of situate ourselves within these charts. This entire slide is at the elementary level. The top two graphs are our high scorers, and the top two graphs, or the bottom two graphs, are our lower scorers. As we read from left to right, we've got schools, we've got Q1 column out of 5 points total, Q2 responses out of 5 points total, and then the measurement of change between Q1 and Q2. And what we've done here on the far right is color-coded the bars, the columns, so that you can see that anywhere where there is a green box, there were some slight to perhaps larger, if you see a star, Q1 to Q2 shifting in a positive direction. And if those boxes to the far right are in red, then we noticed some decline. So essentially, for the first box in the upper left, the adults at my school want me to be successful. By and large, you'll notice even out of our grand total, we're almost at 5.0 in terms of overall, these aren't percentages, but out of 5, 4.46 and 4.47 is pretty high. We do have some slight positive growth there. The second chart to the top right, I have the materials I need to be successful. Again, out of 5, scoring pretty well, but not as well as in the first chart. And then on the bottom 2 charts, we have the lower scoring items, and these are a little bit more interesting in terms of issues of safety. So the first box here, I feel safe from bullying and teasing. Now remember, out of 5 points total, the total scores here are coming in at only 3.29 first quarter, down slightly, Q2, 3.27, with some schools decreasing, and only 2 schools slightly increasing. And when I say slight, I mean slight, 0.01 and 0.06. In terms of enjoying classmates, we've seen an increase at Coquiller, a slight increase at Wilson. Otherwise, we've got some decreasing scores. Okay, then we have middle school. This entire slide is reflective of middle school responses. Again, we've got the same kind of pattern going here. On the far left are the, not schools this time, because all these scores all represent Navarre, but different grade levels. So movement from Q1 to Q2, upper left, I have at least one friend at my school that I can confide in. Out of 5, students are saying at least they have at least one friend they can confide in, so there's someone at school, a peer at school, more or less, for students. The adults at my school want me to be successful. We'll notice out of 5, unlike the peer friend at school, we've got a decrease here in at Q2, 3.73 total, and we've got decreases as the grade levels rise. So the only increase for adults at my school wanting me to be successful was in 6th grade, and the 7th and 8th graders are decreasing in their response to that question. The low scores for middle school, bottom left, I trust the adults in my school to keep me safe from bullying, and these scores were a little bit more concerning. Again, out of 5.0, Q1 total scale is 3.0 out of 5, and then Q2 is only 2.58 out of 5. So we've got Q1 to Q2, scores here are all decreasing. And then in the lower right, I'm proud of my school. We've got some increases going on, however, this is all out of 5 points, remember, so overall kind of low scoring, 2.93 total out of 2.95 total. In terms of Q2 trends and takeaways for middle school student survey, the decreases here in middle school students, I think this is where we really want to spend our attention and time as a takeaway. In middle school, students continue to feel unsafe from bullying, with trust in adults continuing to decrease. So we've got, I trust the adults at my school to keep me safe from bullying and teasing. Overall, we see quite a decrease there. I trust the adults at my school to help me solve problems. Again, a decrease. In terms of student surveys at the elementary level, a highlight that I think is really enlightening is a student response to this question, which we added for Q2. It was not in Q1. But when we talk about teaching and learning, data and accountability often works with, on the teaching and learning in conjunction together to enlighten what it is we do in classrooms. This question becomes really important because it asks students to report back at the elementary level This week, my assignments were, and their choices were too hard, somewhat hard, neutral, somewhat easy, too easy, with the blue shades being all the responses that are either somewhat easy or too easy. And for us, this is a really interesting insight. 28 to 45% of elementary students reported that their assignments were either somewhat easy or too easy. So that means we have our work cut out for us. Our students are demanding challenge, they're demanding academic excellence and rigor, and then that's where we need to turn up the heat. Conversely, 9 to 20% of elementary students stated that their assignments were somewhat hard or too hard. So we saw some folks thinking about assignments as being too hard or somewhat too hard, but the majority of them are saying that their work is too easy. At the middle school level, 35% of 6th grade students, again, we're seeing that arc from elementary to that 1st grade and middle school, reporting back that their assignments were either somewhat easy or too easy. And for our purposes, on this bottom chart, 6th grade is the very last, the first bar or the very last rung on the chart, and then it goes up to 7th and 8th. Quarter 2, academic connections. This was a really great insight in terms of family responses. This goes hand in hand, I would argue, with the idea that students want more from our teaching and curriculum. Family deep dive communication to the question, what type of communication would you like to see more of? And sure enough, we've got a full 33% of families asking for more information with regard to academics. Okay, so not only do we have our students saying, hey, I'd like a little more challenge, we have families saying, can I hear about academics in the classroom? And so that should be, loud and clear for us, our work cut out in terms of teaching and learning and what the data tells us we should do. Thank you.
I'm gonna see if this, yes, it's on. Hello, good evening. I'm going to go ahead and take us, unless anybody has any questions specifically about the data, to our response. The data is obviously important so that we can look at what the current levels are, so that we can look at what the changes are from quarter 1 to quarter 2. And then of course we need to look at what are we going to do because of the information we have. And some of that takes place at the building level. There's structures where Dr. Lemro, as Director of Data and Accountability and our data analyst, structured a protocol for principals to meet with their leadership team around this quarter 1 to quarter 2 change. Where are their current levels? Where are some things that are high that they want to continue and build on? And where are some things that are areas to really hypothesize what are the root causes and what are we going to do about it, and really action plan that. As a system, for all of our schools, we need to do the same at an aggregate and kind of balcony level. How do we respond to the data when we look at all of the information across schools? And we want to ground that in our teaching and learning framework. At the center, and we shared this very early on in the year, but at the center is having equitable and engaging learning experiences for all of our students. And we have a few elements that we want to focus on, or buckets that get us there. One of them being safe and supportive spaces for learning to happen. Another one is planning for rigor and challenge for students. And another one is assessing for growth and making sure that we are meeting the needs of the students in the way that they are progressing. So as we look at those 3 areas, we can look at the quarter 2 survey information and first of all say that we are building on and continuing to build on the changes and the improvements that were made with the quarter 2 reset, so that school culture and climate continues to improve. We also are looking at or engaging in increased supports and training for MTSS process, where we are looking at students that have specific needs and classrooms where we can support students in terms of behavior and supporting their learning environment. When we look at rigor, we can go to the questions and the answers that students have given us related to it's not challenging enough. And those numbers, those percentages are high. And so we want to be, as a teaching and learning team, relentless about rigor. And there are a few ways in terms of systems and structures that we are responding to the data and engaging in that. One of them is through the professional learning community. And increasing, based on this information, increasing the opportunities and intensity of professional learning for professional learning communities to strengthen and be implemented. Our vision is that teacher leaders will be the facilitators of the professional learning community, and so we are engaging them in professional learning opportunities for that end. The professional learning community is where teachers are coming together and asking 4 questions, very driven by and about, focused on academics and what we are doing for students. So what do students need to know and be able to do? How are we going to know that? What do we do with the students that don't know? And what do we do with the students that do know? Those 4 questions are the anchor of every conversation in professional learning communities. And we're tying that to increased supports for lesson planning. Because from professional learning communities and those conversations, driven by the grade level standards and the rigor of what is expected for our students to know, that starts with the planning and how teachers are planning their lessons before reaching the classroom to actually deliver instruction. Not only through lesson planning systems, but also through this professional learning community support so that we can strengthen what is driving that lesson plan. We have professional development with K-12 Lift as well, and the leaders in schools are actually engaging in and facilitating sessions, taking teachers through individual as well as team sessions where they're looking at the visualizations and seeing our students growing quickly enough. So we are pairing the professional learning that's specific to lesson planning communities to get the rigor up, as well as to take a look at where our students are and are they slipping in terms of percentiles, some of the information that we shared with you last time at our last board meeting. Parents are asking for more academic information, and so a key to what we're doing to respond to the data is really strengthening and encouraging and engaging in processes that will lead to more academically focused partnerships with parents. And we'll be talking about that, Ms. Davis will be talking about that in just a few minutes, a large process that is geared to do just that. Let's see. The last thing I want to talk about is professional development in general. The next one, yes. And just kind of because professional learning is a response and an important response to the data, really we've been focused on creating a professional learning system. And we're very excited to say that we have our PL Hub that has just launched. We'll be launching with the registrations that are already happening for our next week PD sessions. But teachers and other staff members are already engaging in registering and getting into the system. But the PL Hub is a platform that allows for us to house registration, attendance, summaries of the courses and the different sessions that we're offering in our early release professional development, as well as other professional development opportunities. It allows us to house asynchronous sessions, to collect and get PGP points and drive the certificates that educators can then document the hours that they have in professional learning. And we're just extremely excited to be able to offer that to all of our staff and like I said, launching with our PD for next week. But it'll house a lot of the systems and it is central to our professional development work this year. Our Director of Professional Practice, Shea Helbig, has led that work, and we're excited to offer it as part of our plan. With that being said, we're gonna go to the next section.
Any questions?
Sorry. Yes, sorry about that.
So with these surveys, and I'm speaking specifically regarding the students, how and when are these surveys given to the students? Is Is it at the school? Are the teachers handing these out? Do they take them home and bring them back? Is it sent to their phones? Like, how are these students, responding? Or how do they get the information and how do they respond?
Thank you. They're digital and they're done in school. It's a great question. They're done in school and not with the youngest of our students. But I believe second or third grade is where we start, all the way through 8th grade.
And when you say digital,
On their computer, on the
okay,
computers.
so it's administered by the teachers.
It's, they can facilitate it, but yes, each student has a Chromebook and they can actually engage in the survey right in the system.
I don't want to monopolize this, but I do have a few questions.
No, go ahead.
I did get an answer to this one. I got an answer to that one. Okay, so I saw in some of the data where the students don't feel safe, they don't trust in terms of trusting their teachers, that the teachers are keeping them safe from bullies, from being bullied, helping them to be successful. And I feel like then there's a contradiction where it says they're proud of their school. How is that data used? Like, how do you utilize that data?
So just to answer that a little bit, what we do after each quarter survey, we compile all the results into a pretty detailed yet user-friendly report, and we disseminate that to all building leaders. And then we hold what we call a data deep dive session, which is usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, which include myself, my data analyst, and all building leaders. Roxana will often join us for that. Dr. Lewis has been there. And we kind of dissect and we point out and we ask building leaders before we even come to the deep dive. We've got an action planning tool and we ask them to look for takeaways. Where are the high levels? Where are the low levels? And then we ask them to speculate. Why might that be, right? We really want to hear from building leaders. Like, these are real insights into exactly, right, how students are feeling in particular with your concern. And then we also have an action planning tool on the document. And the idea isn't to, like, you know, it's not homework. It's meant to be a dialogue across buildings, right? Across elementaries to middle school. Middle school did have the lowest scores on feeling safe, but bullying does kind of pop up across schools. So the idea there is to really use data to inform decisions and lean into it. Like, well, what are we collectively as a zone going to do about these issues?
And I think my question is more towards, is there confusion on the part of the students when they say, we don't trust our teachers as far as helping us be successful? Like, you have the lower scores in the areas of feeling safe and thinking that the teachers or the adults in their building will help them be successful. This is what they're reporting, but then when you say, are you proud of your school? So what is that?
So
what are they contributing that pride to, I guess?
The only thing I would just kind of pay attention to, I know we did put some green boxes to indicate some growth area on the proud of my school, but if you look overall, in the very grand total line, the very bottom line of proud of my school, we only have 2.93 first quarter and then 2.95 total points out of 5. Those are the lowest of all of, do you see what I mean? I do apologize, it's hard to, yeah.
That's helpful. What I was looking at is all the red boxes above, and then I saw the green boxes.
Yep, right.
But I wasn't paying attention to the numbers, so that is very helpful.
Which I think is a,
So, jump in very quickly here. So, one, I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. I think I can be proud of my school and still feel a sense of not being safe all the time. That's one thing. Two, there are many more questions in the survey that are not included. We just, for the purposes of reporting out, we talked about the questions where we saw the highest scores and the lowest scores. So I imagine that some of these subsequent questions that would probably follow the theme around being proud or feeling safe might shed some light into these questions. I will also add, just as like a high level, you know, there are very few responses in the survey, whether it's from staff, students, or parents, that was surprising to any of us, right? And that, for me, is a good thing, because it means that the things that we're working on is supported by the feedback that we're getting from folks. It would be one thing if we didn't try to do the Q2 reset because we were oblivious to safety and bullying, and then we get the survey results. It's like, well, we spent the last 3 months focused on other things, right? So in that way, the data supports and reaffirms many of the actions that we've already been taking.
And to that, just quickly, responses to uniforms in particular, if we're thinking about uniforms as something that could help intervene with regard to bullying, and or if that were ever on the plate as far as something that could contribute to raising scores, we won't see the impact of that in student behavior and beliefs in survey data anyway until Q3. So it would be really interesting to look and see very concretely.
One final question. So the part where the students were, the responses from the students, was that they weren't being challenged? I wonder if that, I mean, I'm thinking in terms of the data from the last meeting, does this go along with the data that you have on performance?
Okay, so it's interesting, right? So as we were kind of thinking about this Q2 reset, you know, I've said to teachers and others on the team, you know, what are you guys gonna do once students actually show up, sit, behave, and follow instructions? The level of work that you will need to give when you have a captive audience has to be more rigorous than the level of work that you're giving now, right? And so I think we're beginning to see that, and we're beginning to see teachers having to be a lot more thoughtful, because if I have a 60-minute block, previously I was spending 45 minutes of that chasing kids, sending kids out, dealing with behavior. Now I'm spending maybe only 20 minutes of my time on that, so I actually need to have 40 minutes of activities, as opposed to before it was just 15 minutes of activities because I was spending all my time handling behavior. So we're seeing some of that. The other thing I would say about the survey in general, what I found in my experience, the type of feedback that you get often depends on the time of year that you take it. And so the survey was done just before winter break. For a lot of students in this time, as we're getting into winter break, we're doing Christmas parties and more celebratory events, and not necessarily still, focused on core instruction. And so anyone who takes a survey, it's usually going to be more reflective of real-time, present-time feeling, as opposed to something I might have been feeling a week ago. So that's something that we also kind of take into consideration in terms of the reliability and the validity of the data. And that's for both good and bad, right? When I get parents or staff survey around winter break time, or if it's any kind of break, or if we just gave a raise or a bonus, no, I know the data is inflated, right? People are feeling good right now, it's winter time. So I take the data with a grain of salt on both sides. But that's just me, personally.
I'd like to add something in regards to that academic link that you mentioned as far as the data that we shared last time. There were two, if you might recall, there were two SMART goals, or two goals that we're focused on and that really our minds are thinking about. One of them is, are students on pace to learn a year's material in a year's time? Our data overall is showing we're in a good place for that. We want more of it. We want the highest percentage possible in every classroom. But we're doing well, let's say, with goal one. The second goal, which is really where we're going to see huge transformation of student outcomes, is I think what we're working on and ties into what's been mentioned already. And that is, our students growing quickly enough that we're pushing them, if they have large gaps, we're pushing them across the tiers and across proficiency levels so that they are at proficiency and above proficiency. And that's where that grade level rigor and that solid, robust planning for instruction is going to come into play. So I think both and.
And we're not doing as good with goal 2 as we are with goal 1.
That's right.
Just a quick question on the survey response rate. Do all the schools do it the same way? You explained that usually you take the time to, and they do it during school time, right? So looking at like Book Alert, and are they just distributing it in a different fashion because of the lower rate? I'm just curious.
That's a great follow-up question, and I'd like to ask building leaders, because there's something there. The fact that Harrison has 70%, Wilson has 73% student response rate, but that's statistically significant, right? 26% not so much. So, yeah.
That is the expectation, though. We do
Yeah.
encourage that they do it as a class during homeroom time or a dedicated time when, again, you have a captive audience and everyone has a Chromebook in front of them. Some teachers meet the expectations, some don't. That's an area of improvement.
If I could, I just have, and Mr. Wilson, you had a comment, you wanna go, because I think you had a comment first.
Well, it was more of a question, and I guess I heard the interventions on around the rigor, and I guess my question would be the significant red that you all had pointed out as it relates to trust in the school and around the adults in their lives. What specific interventions or things that are, I would love to hear what's being done as it relates to that, because I would assume, I could be wrong, that how they feel about their time in school could impact their learning if we're raising the rigor on what they're doing.
It's a great point, and I think that falls into that this area or this cluster of safe and supportive spaces for learning, building relationships, right? The connections and all of the things that take place. In our early release professional development, we have a structure and a schedule where we have different areas of focus, different weeks. Next week, for example, we have seven different offerings. Not all of them are tied to academics or rigor. So we have things related to social emotional learning, how to support students in the classroom, how to build systems that can really help that, building community. So there are different topics that we address through professional development to touch on that as well. And there are supports to help teachers in the classroom as well in building those systems and having strategies in the classroom and structures in the classroom that foster that community and relationship.
A few other things. One, we've been a lot more intentional about some of our support roles, like social workers, peace builders, and kind of making sure that they're doing a lot more proactive relationship building with students, as opposed to right now a lot of things are reactive. We've really been thoughtful about trying to create opportunities for students and staff to interact outside the classroom setting, such as electives and sports. Relationship is often built through extracurricular activities. This Black History Month showcase that we're doing has been a great opportunity for students and staff to connect outside of the classroom setting. So those are some of the things that we're doing as well to help in this area. Again, I will also add, timing is important. And so if I'm a student and if you ask me if there's an adult in the building who cares about me after the adults in the building just said, I now have to wear uniforms, I now have to wear clear backpacks, and I voiced as students that we don't want this, but they're still forcing this on me, then I really don't think you care about me, right? As a student, right? Because oftentimes, not just students, but or staff as well, often confuse the difference between having the opportunity to provide feedback with meaning that we accept the feedback, right? And so you have the opportunity to have voice, but it doesn't mean that you get what you want. Those are two different things. So I take that into consideration as well. And, you know, as I walked around the buildings, yes, a lot of students were upset at that time, you know, that all of these things are now happening. But we've also, again, been super intentional about trying to create opportunities outside the classroom. We've asked building principals to include in their building schedules mindfulness moments where we kind of stop all the instruction and we do a quick mindfulness activity, have meditation corners in classrooms, things of that nature, to help the social emotional needs of our students. So we're doing a number of things.
Thank you.
I just had a question for clarification on the slide 7, where it starts the Q2 survey response rates in the family response rate area. Is that an absolute number that you're trying to tell us, not a percentage like the others?
Right.
I was wanting to know.
That's a great notice, and thank you, Chairmember Belt. And so these are a number of families that participated.
Yeah. It'd be fantastic if that could be translated to percentage. Like what percent of our families responded versus absolute number.
Great catch, we can make that change, so that they're all parallel and have percentages across the board, give you that context.
Yeah, cause I'm imagining, you know, I'm looking at Coquilla, and if it's 15 families who responded first quarter, and when we doubled, we went to 30. It's an absolute number, but I'm also curious, like, okay, now how many families do we have in there? So what's the percentage? Okay.
Yes,
And then,
thank you.
Thank you, please. And then, I guess it's just a comment, and I appreciate hearing how this is a system, it's a feedback loop. You're doing the survey, you're analyzing results, you got teacher leadership teams, professional development, brainstorming about how to address the deficiencies and the next steps. So I appreciate that. What you talked about is in regards to the adult professionals in the building. At some point, I know it's going to come. I would certainly like to see, you know, we've had these issues, or whatever, you're showing us results of survey, and I would certainly like to see and hear what parents would propose as solutions to these issues, as well as students. Because I know that, you know, VAR has a student leadership team, right? And I think I saw that Harrison has one. I'm not sure about the other 3 schools, but I do follow some things on Facebook and social media, and so I know that there's some student leadership groups, and so I'll be very curious to see what the students have to say about what I felt when I wrote that survey, and what I think solutions would be. Because, you know, when I have I have 2 students, and I often ask them, what do you think about X, Y, Z? Not divulging anything that's sensitive or sensitive information. And they have great perspective, and it's, you know, I mean, it's they have great perspective and surprising answers to questions sometimes. And so I would like to see, hopefully at some point where we're tapping into those resources, what do they think? Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's something we could do now, kind of a similar data deep dive protocol with student groups and parent groups. And we're doing it just with staff to get their perspective on the data. I think that's a great idea and something that we can implement right now.
Thank you, fantastic. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the next portion is another response to our data. And it is something that is called promotion in doubt. And as it reads there, it is an intervention process designed to ensure individualized action plans are developed and implemented with students that are not on track to demonstrate sufficient growth by the end of the year for promotion into the next grade level. And so the next paragraph kind of talks about when it is initiated, and I'll go a little bit deeper in that. But some of the things that go on with this process, again called promotion in doubt, is reviewing student data, communicating and partnering with parents, collecting data regarding the student progress, and we're looking at their academic performance, their attendance, and their behavior. And so it is not a punitive process. Again, it is an intervention that we are putting in place in order to support our students. So far, these are some of the things that we have done and some of the things that are to come with promotion in doubt. And so February 3rd to February 8th, again, it's based on our students' academics, attendance, and behavior data. Principals have submitted names that they have received from the teachers looking at their data, whether it is iReady, whether it is formative assessment data, whether it is behavior data, and then looking at their attendance. And once they have submitted those names, the principals then submit their list to Dr. Lewis, Roxana, and myself. And so beginning February 9th, parent letters were sent home with their progress reports, and then there are going to be action plans that are co-created with parents and parents and students for each student that has received this promotion in doubt notification. And then there are also going to be an opportunity for portfolios of student work to be created. I believe in your packet there is, I should say, a sample promotion in doubt document, and it is the action plans and sample parent letters to give you an idea. It's a one-pager, two-sided. I believe it was added. It's all black and white, no color. And so in looking at that, hopefully you all have it. On that first side, it talks about those three areas. You have two on the one side, attendance, behavior, and then I think one of those was repeated. It's supposed to be attendance, academics, and behavior. The second one on that first side that says behavior is supposed to be academics. But it talks about the action steps, SMART goal, that again, this should be done or co-created with the parents and the students along with school staff. It talks about who is going to support the student in these goals that they're created, and then as they progress, monitor by when, like when are they going to complete it, when are we going to start it, how much are we going to check in, and then when is it going to be completed. And so this is just an example that was given to all of the principals to support them in having these conversations and working collaboratively with the parents and the students in order to make sure that the student, as we get to, I believe it's May, and the end of the year, that they have made progress into where that they need to be. Also beginning February 9th, those are where those growth chats, they're conducted and those goals are set, which is on that example. And then moving into March, communications regarding the progress are going to be included with the report cards this time. And then we'll look back at the evidence, that's the progress monitoring piece, and discussing some of these things during parent-teacher conferences, and then hopefully having student-led parent-teacher conferences so the students can explain what they're learning, what they may be struggling with, things that are going on in the building, and just being able to take the lead on, discussing how they feel about their education. And then on the last slide for promotion in doubt, and again, this is a response to our data, looking at the end of year iReady and other data, reviewing to see if they've assessed growth, looking at those growth, looking to see if, looking at those portfolios of work, how their attendance has improved. We're not going to say the opposite because we're going to claim that everything that we're putting in place is going to be positive for our students. And then looking at our action steps and that progress monitoring piece, as well as then deciding, okay, who has made this grow? Are we going to retain this student, or is this student going to be promoted to the next grade level? And so if it comes to a point where a student is not going to be promoted to the next grade level. There will be, as you see in that last box, the parent, if they receive a letter saying that their child is going to be retained, there will be a team put together for the retention committee of appeals. So the parent will have a chance to appeal. It will be made up of the teachers and the principals, and then they will review the data, those action plans that I talked about, and then identifying, you know, all of those students. And then once we have the list of those students, the parent meetings will be conducted, and the student then, based on all of that information, if the committee has a unanimous vote to move the child on, they will not be promoted to the next grade. They will be placed to that next grade because it was an appeal to what was the recommendation from the building based off of that data. And so that basically is one response to the data when it comes into promotion in doubt. So it doesn't mean that the student will be retained, but as long as they are making progress along the way when it comes to their academics, attendance, and behavior, they will have a chance to be promoted to the next grade. But then again, the parent can come back, and if they do not agree with the decision, they can appeal. And then again, if it is unanimous, the student will then be placed into the next grade. So that is one response.
A couple of things to add to that. One, prior to the appeal, so students go through the action plan. If they make sufficient progress by May, great, they get promoted to the next grade. If they do not, then they are still on the pathway for being retained. They then are required to go to summer school. And summer school will be June 12th through the 30th. It's 3 weeks. And summer school will look different for students, whether it's their retention is based on academics, behavior, or attendance. And so if you are being retained because of behavior, then summer school for you is going to be really social emotional time. So you're going to be with a social worker, a psychologist, you're going to be learning about self-regulating, de-escalation, how to process your feelings, that kind of stuff, right? If you're being retained based on academics, then it's going to be academic focus. Student successfully complete summer school, great, you get promoted to the next grade. If you didn't successfully complete summer school, you are retained, and then at that point, the only way to get to the next grade is for a parent to appeal the retention. And as Mrs. Davis said, it needs to be unanimous. You get placed in the next grade, but you get placed with a placement plan. So it's an individualized learning plan that is in effect for the first quarter. All right, so that's what also distinguishes a placement from being promoted. And we also want to be super clear that as a part of this promotion in doubt process, right, like if I'm a student, I'm a parent, and I get this notice saying my child's promotion in doubt, I come into the school, and the action plan is overwhelming, student and parent's gonna walk away feeling defeated, and they're just gonna be like, this doesn't make any sense, right? Like, we won't be able to make enough progress, so, you know, plan to be retained, or I'm gonna try to transfer you to a different school and hope they won't retain you. We want the SMART goals in the action plan to be collaboratively decided so that there's shared investment and accountability, but also achievable. So again, if you look at like an example, here's a student from like a behavior perspective who has issues with managing their feelings. And so a SMART goal is students should be able to articulate what they're feeling when he or she is angry, as opposed to just start throwing chairs, right? A student who is promotion in doubt because of attendance, we don't expect you to come to school every day now, but maybe the goal is for the month of March, you will come to school 2 days a week and be there for the full day. Now to you, that sounds like still not enough, but for a student who's been absent 55 days already, coming now twice a week is a big commitment. Then for April, we want you to come 3 times a week, then for May, 4 times a week, and stay the full day. So we wanna make sure that the action plan, students walk away feeling like, if I just give a little bit of effort, this is something that I can achieve, so I get back on track to being promoted to the next grade. We have across our schools, and I'm sure this is a question, hundreds of students that fall into promotion and down. Now, we don't plan to or expect to retain hundreds of students, but to be clear, this is not a thought exercise. And so students who disregard the action plan, don't take advantage of summer school, you will be retained. And again, to overturn it, it must be a unanimous decision. So, I imagine that going through this process, some families will try to withdraw and take their kid to another school that just automatically promotes. Some families will make the effort to try to go through the action plan. And some families and students will be retained. And it is what it is. So I just wanted to add some additional context there.
No, that was my question, is how many? You said hundreds, so I was, yeah. What is it?
It's funny, as we were preparing the presentation, I said, put a spreadsheet with the numbers, because if anyone asks, it's gonna be Ms. Ball. And I was proven correct. If others have a question, I can pull up and give you a rough estimate real quick.
Well, I have a question regarding the placement plan. Will the placement plan, look similar to what you said they would be doing in summer school? If they didn't do the summer school portion and ended up, there was a unanimous decision, the parent, wanted to appeal, and then they were placed. Is that placement plan gonna look similar to what they would have done in summer school?
Not necessarily. It's probably good, not probably, it will likely be a little more detailed. I would think of it as an ILP, kind of more akin to an IEP. So it's going to have a lot more checks and balances. So that's how I would think about it, as like an individual learning plan. So as an example, if I'm a student that was recommended for retention because of academics, I get placed, right? I know I'm below grade level, so I now get placed from 6th grade to 7th grade. I'm now gonna have 2 ELAs and 2 math. I'm gonna get 7th grade ELA because that's the grade level I'm assigned to, but I'm now gonna be required to take a second math that's an intervention math block because you really are not prepared for 7th grade math. So that's something that would be a little bit more intense, Ms. Ball, I will create a spreadsheet and have it sent.
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the numbers.
Any other questions, or I think we can go on to the balance calendar?
Good evening again. We will be discussing for a little bit something we're real excited about, and that is a proposal for the balanced calendar, or a balanced calendar, and really restructuring with a focus on student learning. And we'll talk through a little bit of where we're going to go with it and what our plan is for that. But we'd like to start with some of the why. Summer learning loss is definitely something that you may have heard of. With long summers comes often the loss of learning, and not starting from scratch, but really seeing that gap. Incredibly repeated in the research is that gap widening for students that have been furthest from opportunity, and groups of students that have been historically marginalized. So we see that gap greater for our Black and brown students and students in poverty. There are benefits for students and there are benefits for educators, and we'd like to start always with what the benefits are for students. That summer learning loss gap is addressed through continuous instruction without a large 2.5 months off, but also through the structures, and we'll visualize those in a moment, the structures for intervention, where we can really focus on remediation, on acceleration, and target certain students that need that additional push through the structure of balanced calendar. Improved academic achievement is seen in a lot of the research, if not maintained. Increased attendance and reduced disciplinary issues such as referrals. For our teachers and for educators, there is often in the research consistently, teacher satisfaction is improved, teacher burnout is reduced. We'll be speaking about a teacher prep day that really can support teacher planning and preparation before students come back each quarter. And having those systematic breaks just allows for an opportunity to decrease and mitigate burnout of what is often a very intense job in the school. There are districts in Indiana that are using a balanced calendar, different demographics, different sizes, but we're in contact and communicating and really wanting to learn from others that have transitioned into a balanced calendar as we explore that with our stakeholders. Nationally, there are some states that have significant numbers of their schools or districts with a balanced calendar, and you can see some of those here. Wake County, although not a state, has about a quarter of their schools with a balanced calendar as well. And in 46, right? Out of 50 states, there is a year-round plan or balanced calendar somewhere in most of our states. Okay, so there are many models for a balanced calendar, and what that is defined as varies. We are looking at and proposing a 45-15 model, which is 45 days in school, 15 days out of school. It aligns with what a quarter would be, so 9 weeks of school and a 3-week break after each quarter. So it's an earlier start. As you can see, the dates are up on the projected and on the slide, with a July 31st starting date, and that first break being from October 2nd to October 20th. Again, that cycle repeats every 45 days with a 15-day break, and then 5 weeks in the summer. An important component of what we're proposing is that each quarter begins with a teacher planning day, a shortened day, but a day where they come in before students come in, to really allow them to ease back in to the school and plan and prepare for the students' return the next day. If we look at that 3-week break cycle, that currently doesn't exist obviously in a regular traditional calendar. The first week, one of the things that's been really important for us to propose is that all schools are closed, period. Completely allowing for everybody at the school level to recharge, to rest and recharge. In week 2 and week 3, we would have the opportunity for students, day camps, external providers, to be able to have students there in kind of like what would be a summer type day camp club, to support parents and the community that would like to have their students at school or in a program, but it wouldn't be school. For the second week, as opposed to the second and third week, we propose an intensive intervention week. This is where, in addition to reducing the summer so that learning loss is mitigated, we make sure that identified students students that have large gaps are, and coming right out of the promotion and doubt conversation, are really addressed, supported, and interventions are targeted for their needs throughout the year, woven into each cycle 4 times a year. We're also considering and proposing an opportunity for optional professional development for our teachers that would be asynchronous or live and virtual. Let's look at some of the dates in terms of the summer. Having already shared the quarters and where those dates end, June 21st is when school would end and summer start. We would want to have a full day camp, external provider type of opportunity for students from June 21st through July 26th, which is right before school would return. So it's a 5-week break, and then summer school would happen from June 24th through June 28th. 1 week instead of what this year would look like, because we have instead ensured that our students are getting the supports at each cycle from Q1, Q2, Q3, as well as after Q4 through this summer school. Proposed for the next year, again, 2023-2024, we would have our teachers return. New teachers would have the opportunity to have a few days of orientation, really deep supports in learning the systems, HR, all of the information that new teachers need that would be differentiated and not necessary for returning teachers. And then we would propose that July 22nd, which is a Monday, through July 26th, be a week where all teachers are available, where we can really focus on professional development, curriculum, and planning. We have laid out our plan in terms of engaging stakeholders, both internally and externally, and have already started down that path, as you can see in this slide. We are midway, almost at the midpoint, in speaking to and having town halls with building staff. And we'll start with parent town halls next week, I believe midweek. Let's see if there's anything else. So you can see and kind of the date windows of our engagement with stakeholders, and the opportunity to have discussions, to hear questions, and to be able to answer those. We also want to share that there's a plan for not only a decision framework at the end of this stakeholder engagement to ensure that we have criteria and points that we are basing a decision on, as you can see, and then a process to really lay and play that out. If there's anything we need to go over, please feel free to ask. The balanced calendar, also, as we've engaged groups, we have new questions. We started with some questions that we wanted to be able to answer, and we're collecting questions as we go. Here are a few of the items, and we'll be sharing the live document that we're using as well. As was mentioned, summer is a 5-week break, and then there are 3-week breaks after every quarter. You can see here why the why is in a condensed format explained. What happens during breaks each of the weeks, week 1, week 2, week 3, as we went over. And something that hasn't been mentioned that I'd like to mention is that we have done everything possible so that we have an aligned calendar with the SBCSC calendar. So although our breaks are longer, the fall, winter, and spring breaks fit within our three-week cycles for SBCSE. And Thanksgiving, that's right, I forgot about Thanksgiving break. They're all included in a break cycle. I think that's it. And then the next slide. One more. And just to share for more information, there's a QR code here where this is our live frequently asked questions document. And it is getting regenerated and revised as we collect more information and more questions from the stakeholders we're discussing balanced calendar with.
Any comments, questions? It's, bold.
That's what you hired me for.
That's right.
Innovation, transformation.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, so when I saw this, I was like, wow. Okay, so my initial response, actually, I was excited because, and I'm sure I can't speak for anybody else around the table, but because of the fact that I do serve on the other board, and I do take time sometimes to look at different models throughout the country. I know that you demonstrated, there's other models out there. And so I was excited by it. Then there was also the other side of it too, is that I just think it's going to be important to get that stakeholder feedback. And I will say this, is that I'm just speaking for myself as a zone board member. I would really like to see some kind of discussion that this board has with the South Bend School Board Board. As I'm sure everybody's aware, we're going through a facilities master plan discussion, a whole bunch of potential, there's, meetings and such like that. So, I don't know how and when that will take place, but I would encourage us to find some points of communication with the other board. But I like that this is different.
Thank you. So,
Okay,
a couple of comments. So, I mean, we've begun the process, as the following slide said, we shared this at our monthly maintenance meeting with the NEA, and I see our supportive partner, Ms. Linda Lucy, is here, and we got some positive feedback from the union representation, and I see Ms. Lucy is nodding her head in agreement. Several of the teachers at the meeting came from districts with balanced calendar and spoke highly of it in terms of how it improved their work-life balance and ability to spend time with their own kids. And we've presented this at 2 school meetings thus far, and the feedback from teachers has been overwhelmingly positive. So, we'll unlike the fall with the Q2 reset where we made the decision and then told folks afterwards, which is not how I like to do things. And this time, we are engaging folks before a decision is made. And so we are following a kind of a similar process to, as you kind of mentioned, the master facilities planning. This is not yet a recommendation, this is a scenario. We will engage the community, get their feedback, and then we will come to the board in April with a recommendation, and then at that point, the board will vote on said recommendation. And it could be exactly what we have here, it could be a variation. There are plenty of balanced calendar models, or it could be we are just gonna adopt the SBCSC calendar, right? So any of these things can be presented to the board in April. But we've gotten positive feedback from staff before. I will tell you that in the fall, as we were doing the Q2 reset, I had parents emailing me, have you ever thought about doing Saturday school or year-round school? Because, our scores are so low and kids are, our kids in such dire shape. So I had parents back in the fall suggesting this, year-round school and including Saturday school as something that we should consider next year to help close the gaps. It's not lost on me that this will not work for some people, that for some staff, it won't be what they want, and we'll probably lose some staff, and same thing with some families. But there'll be some staff who are in a traditional calendar that will want to leave and come to us because of this balanced calendar, and the same is true for families. So we lost some families after the Q2 reset, but we gained some families as well who said they wanted to be in schools with more structure and liked the uniforms and liked the clear backpacks. I have had teachers from the district since the Q2 reset reach out saying, hey, we like these new policies in the zone, can we come over to the zone? And don't worry, Dr. White and I talk, we make sure that there's a process and that we're not poaching from each other's staff during the middle of the year, but that's happened. The larger conversation as well is, we all know the district continues to lose students, and from the fall count in September to the mid-year count 2 weeks ago, there was an additional decline of about 200 plus students. And so we, whenever I'm asked about this, I've shared with Dr. Cummings when we meet, or anyone who asks me, my response is that we need to offer a better product if we want to get families back. That has to be a part of the solution. And that includes having different models. And so I think in general, if we work on improving our schools, but also having a variety of different schools that make up the mosaic of South Bend schools, then I think we become more competitive, because there's no reason for families to be driving 2 cities over to go to a school that they like, when there are plenty of options that's 5 minutes away. We just need to make it a good option for them. And so I think, again, having more innovative models, having a variety of models, and overall improving the quality of our schools is ultimately what's gonna help bring families back.
My only comment is, I'm sure I'm glad that you are getting input from others, but I think about the parents, and I could see like Q2 and Q3, especially the break, 12:25 to 1:12. I don't think anybody would argue about that. 10 to 10:20, that's a long haul there for a break. And I'm thinking, where would the children go during that break? That would be the question I would have.
It's a great question, right? So again, for the students who need it the most, kind of like the students we have now in PID, that intervention starts at the end of Q1. And we would open our buildings to external partners like Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, whomever wants to run a day camp in the building for those 2 weeks. And just as we do it after school, we subsidize a lot of the costs. Some of Boys and Girls, as an example, a lot of that is provided to our families through grants, and then where necessary, we help to subsidize the cost. So we would hope that, Boys and Girls, YMCA, whomever the partner, Kaleidoscope, whomever, who wants to say, hey, I want to run day camps during these 2-week breaks, and have that option for families, great. So we hope to have that available. I'll also say, when we were talking about the weekly early dismissal on Thursdays, this was a concern, right? And, not that concerns are not, I don't think about concerns. Ultimately, parents figured it out. And I think we often underestimate our families. And I think if we engage them with enough time, try to provide some supports, collaboratively, we'll figure it out. as we did with the weekly Thursday dismissals. And if any of you go to our buildings on Thursdays, there are not hundreds of kids just hanging around waiting to be picked up. The buildings are cleared. Parents have figured it out. So, you know, I think it would, with sufficient support and ample notice, they do the same thing here. My thought, but great question.
Would food be provided also, like?
Sorry?
Would there be food provided? Because we know some of our families.
Yes.
need that.
Yes, so that would be some of the support, yes.
So on the last frequently asked question, it says, it asked the question about year 5. With the zone entering year 5, we hope to have the answer regarding the long-term plans for the zone by April. So as I look at the calendar, that's some 60 days away.
Yes.
And this board has not been involved in any conversations related to the long-term future of the board, nor has the Southland Community School Corporation board. My guess is if we tried to put those two boards together even, we're probably 3 or 4 weeks out at best, given being right in the middle of the facilities plan. How does this process look where we figure out the long-term plans of the zone by April?
Yeah, and certainly that's like probably the third question we get asked, like, do we wanna do all this change if the zone's gonna go away a year from now? There are, at this time, no formal conversations about the future of the zone one way or another. However, conversations are happening. I have those conversations with the leadership on the district side. As you know, I share 2 board members with the district, so some of those conversations are happening. I think very, 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 very shortly, we will get together, as Ms. Ball kind of indicated, and the chips will fall. My position is, I don't want to say I don't care about what the decision is. It's more important to me that we have a decision, right? It is hard for me to plan one way or another with that kind of uncertainty. So as an example, as you know, one of our principals is retiring at the end of the year, and I'm trying to fill a principal vacancy. Locally, folks are like, well, I don't want to leave my current job and potentially take this job if it's just going to be for a year. And if I'm trying to recruit folks from out of town, no one's going to pack up and move for potentially just a year. And that is not lost on either the leadership of the zone or the leadership of the district. Now, it doesn't mean that we are aligned on what the decision will be, but everyone is aligned that time is of the essence and a decision is needed one way or another sooner rather than later. I would also say, from just my vantage point, in the context of master facility planning, it would make sense to figure all of these things out at the same time, because anyone also paying attention recognize that in each of the scenarios, at least one zone school is potentially affected, and in 2 models, some of our zone schools are kind of shifted in terms of their feeder pathways, right? So for me, it would also be challenging to make a decision about the district as a whole without considering the implications for the zone. So I think the opportunity is prime, and it does make sense that these 2 things would align. And I'm putting April because that's the projection for when the SBCSC board will make a decision on master facility planning.
So will there be any role at all in this process for this board?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
yes. I was just.
Okay, no, that's
Yes.
very helpful, thank you.
But I think that all underscores what some of us are saying, the need to begin this dialogue quickly with the school corporation as a whole, because I agree with your timeline. This all has to be done in concert, but 60 days, as was said, yeah.
We have our work cut out for us.
Nights and weekends, we're good.
I'm exempt, I do get overtime.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Ball?
One other comment. I observed the week 2, plan when there's that break and you have, the optional professional development. Would there be any opportunity for, an incentive?
Optional is in parentheses. The folks who will be, encouraged to participate in these PDs outside of their contracted days, it will be encouraged. It will be in their best interest to participate. So I don't foresee the need to make it
It's
stipend.
not, it doesn't have to be incentivized.
Correct.
But there may be people who, because of, they need,
Yeah.
all right.
Does
I
that,
was curious about optional, like,
yeah, does that make sense?
But-
Yeah.
Yes.
Just one other comment, and I asked the question, but generally, I'm very excited about this too. Part of why we got in this initially was because we needed to do things different, and academic performance was, one of our most important concerns. Other school corporations actually have seen the benefit that this provides. So I am grateful for the bold thinking. So I appreciate you throwing it out there, because I think it makes sense to consider stuff like this as we, have sought to move the needle, and we have to think outside the traditional box.
Thank you.
And I just wanna agree and add that, I understand the rationale behind it. Our own Ivy Tech Community School has done some radical changes, going from 16 weeks to 8 weeks, and so there is a study of all of these changes that is beneficial for the students, so I do get that. I think part of the reason that we were able to keep moving forward with that Thursday early release is because of the fact that there was support behind it. So I did want to add that I think this is a great idea. I just wanted to ensure that there would be support for the family. So I just want to clarify my comment on that.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was not lost on us, and we looked at what other places with balanced calendars do during this time. There are some districts, in particular out west, that where financially they're strapped. They lease the buildings during their intermittent breaks to the service providers to run the camps, and it then it becomes a source of revenue for some of these districts. I'm not saying that we're there yet, and I don't know that we could, bill boys and girls to use our buildings during these 3 weeks to run camps, but yeah, there are for some districts, it's been beneficial financially as well. And to be clear, it's not extending teacher contracts, it's redistributing their current contractual days. So, as we think about it in terms of like expenditures, we don't foresee an increase in our operating expense moving to this model.
I would just like to affirm also, I've lived in districts where this worked and worked really, really well, and you've seen the gains from it. And also parents can figure this out, and some of them will see it as an opportunity to do things with their families that they couldn't ordinarily do because of school, because the kids were in school. So I think some will think about this basically the way that we are. It's an opportunity, and others who will not see it as an opportunity, there's supports in place to ensure that the needs of the family, the needs of the students are met. So I think this is a wonderful idea.
Thank you. We'll move on to finance. Ms. Ross?
Testing. Good evening. I'll be brief.
You always get the tail end and you're forced to condense.
I know, right? I
thought we moved you in the order today. We'll make sure we move you for next month.
It's fine. Alrighty, so I'm starting off presenting the 501c3 finances. You'll have there in your packet on page 36. So I met with the finance committee earlier this week, with Jeff and Ryan. They were able to attend. We went over these documents, including the bank statement, statement of activities. And so we had rigorous conversation. They were able to ask and probe any questions there, just as a context. So basically looking at the budget to actuals, which was also presented in the committee meeting. This is again our 501c3, and we have about 1.1 million budget for that. We are approaching spending about 76% of that according to this worksheet, but we are due a number of funds that we seek reimbursements against our grants. So some grants have come in, like our Pride has been approved. Our SIG is all but approved. So some of the salaries here, if you come on down to payroll expenditures, I would say at least $200,000 of that is going to be reimbursed against grants, which will bring us in line with about a 60%. You'll see my notes down there. We'll be at about 60% spent at this point of the year, and that's kind of where we are right now. In the year, about 60% of the year has occurred. So we're on track with budget to actuals for our 501c3 discretionary fund. Even though a few things might go over, some things have went under our budget. So we are looking at a decent shape there. Any questions on that one? Okay, if you would turn, the next one is our statement of financial position. You'll find our current assets, liabilities, and total equity. So our assets primarily is what is in our bank account. Our accounts receivable, just to recap, is whenever you see that, it's just funds that the district is sending us, reimbursing us against certain grants. So we've spent the money out of the 501c3, and then we seek reimbursement. So that's coming from the district, and that has really drawn down. If I were to pull the February report, it's at about 60,000. So we've got most of that back already. But at the time of this report, could be a couple payrolls and some vendors, for example. And then whenever you see accounts payable coming on down to liabilities, this is what we owe the district, and this is usually 99% of the time related to health insurance. So we're in the process, we pay that to the sum of getting close to $60,000 a month. So that's our assets, liabilities, and total equity. If there's no questions on that, I'm just looking ahead. So that's our 501c3 portion. So our next meet, our plan is to report out to you all of our other funding from our grants, the other 35 million, which is housed with SBCSC. So that is something to look forward to, whether you see it on a high level or you'll see the software that we've been working on putting this data in. It will be presented next week. And beyond that, for April coming up, after we are able to present this data, we're able to move on to 23-24 budget for March and presenting that out in April. So expect that looking ahead. And then lastly, our audit, by the way, for 501c3 is underway, and we should have an update on that any day. So.
Thank you. That was going to be my one question. So, so that just as a refresher, that's for the June 30, 2022 year end for the zone 501c3. So thank you. I thought that's where the status was, but thank you for confirming.
How'd I do? 5 minutes or less?
Great.
Okay, you said great. Okay.
Any
questions?
Any questions or comments before we vote on the financial report?
I'll move for approval of the financial report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lewis, up to you.
All right, I'll take us on home. 7:52. We will finish by 8, before 8. So starting with personnel.
Oh, yeah, just me.
8 o'clock Central Time. So starting with hires, so we did not onboard on the zone side any new employees in January. As I've kind of shared with you all before, we are watching very, very closely our finances, and so to the extent possible, there's somewhat of a hiring freeze, especially on the zone budget side. We did onboard 7 folks on the district side, one of which was a reassignment to someone becoming an AP at Warren. We moved to separations. On the zone side, we had 2 separations for January. However, there's a 3rd one listed as it was not included in the December report. On the district side, we had 6 separations. As I've shared with the board, some separations are in anticipation for the upcoming year, where we know that some of these roles will not exist anymore. Some of these separations, albeit are associated with us, are as a result of or contractors. So as you can see, if you see a custodial separation, or custodians are provided to us through a third-party contractor with the district. So not necessarily our staff, but assigned to one of our buildings. Any questions or comments on the personnel report? See none. Recognitions. So I'll start in reverse order with National School Counseling Week, which was just last week. We have some amazing counselors and mental health adjacent staff in our buildings, and so we want to thank them for their service and recognize them for all the hard work that they do. And of course, it goes without saying, we want to recognize that this is Black History Month. You know, as Ms. Davidson was planning for what Black History Month would look like and share out with the schools, one of a big piece of feedback I gave to her was, let's be sure that we're thinking beyond the usual folks that we celebrate. You know, there are a lot more people to celebrate in Black history besides and beyond Rosa Parks and Dr. King and Malcolm X, which we should celebrate. But there's certainly a lot more folks. One of my personal favorite, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, the namesake of my undergraduate university, who served as an advisor to 5 presidents and was one of only 2 Black individuals asked to represent the United States at the inception of the UN. But also to think locally as well, right? We have plenty of Black heroes and folks to be celebrated locally here in Indiana, in South Bend, and specifically on the west side. But as I am new to Indiana, I was curious about why Indianans are called Hoosiers. And it turns out that the namesake for Hoosier is a Black Methodist priest, pastor, Harry Hoosier, who was born into slavery in the 1770s and was born illiterate, taught himself to be a pastor. And interestingly enough, right now in the Indiana State House, Representative J.D. Prescott, who is a Republican representing Union City, I'm not sure where that is, has filed House Bill 1143 in recognition of Harry Hoosier and making it official in the state. So interesting bit of fact. So the name Hoosiers can be accredited here in Indiana to a Black man who was born a slave. And now we have legislation from Representative J.D. Prescott of Union City, who has filed House Bill 1143 to put that in black and white. So, certainly want to recognize all the great heroes, but there's so many other heroes locally, at the state level, at the city level, and on the west side that we should celebrate as well. And so I hope we are learning about those folks and celebrating those folks. And so with that, that is the end of the Zone Chief Report at 7:57.
Duly noted. Thank you. We'll wrap up here, Board of Communications. The only comment I'll have is, again, underscoring what we can all expect to happen soon, which is a lot of discussion and some good thought around what you're proposing. From my perspective, I think it's exciting to talk about things of this nature rather than some of the things we've had to talk about at times over the past few years. This is something that I think could be really interesting. So any other items from the board to bring forward? Anybody has? Yes.
I'm just gonna make this comment, which I would highly encourage anyone who's listening or viewing, and as well as folks in the room, to please participate in the South Bend Community School Corporation Facilities Management Plan, attend a virtual session, complete the survey, make your desires, whims, wishes, disgruntled feelings known. I mean, it all counts. No decisions have been made, but there's a lot that's been presented.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to those who have attended in person and those who are watching, I think, online, and who may.
First live stream.
Yes, and who may pick this up down the road. So thank you to all. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion, meeting adjourned 7:59.
We're gonna put you in charge.
Yes. We will let Sam know, 7:59.